Yo, what's up RuneScape? This is DIY UIM, the series where I only use stuff I make myself from scratch. Last time I ended off doing some rune crafting, so I'm picking it right back up. After grinding out 1,000 air runes, I move on to mind runes and it's quite tedious. I put some stuff on the table to save on inventory so I can use 25 essence at once and have a nice round number of runes. It takes roughly 8 minutes per trip compared to the 6-minute trips for air runes. I used a RuneLite plugin to check the optimal route, which does go past some hostile Black Knights, but natural regen is plenty to tank a few hits every 8 minutes. Anyway, I didn't think things through and lost the 1,000 air runes because I didn't realize that setting things down on tables makes them visible after a minute. So on my first time doing that in Varrock, someone took just the runes off the table, and I didn't even realize it until editing, but I actually caught him on camera. Congrats on the loot, midget troll. I also did the frog random and bought the frog prince outfit without thinking because it's a cosmetic, before realizing that I didn't make that, so I dropped it. No exceptions for Fashionscape. But in episode 1, I actually made a serious mistake, which is why I'm dropping 300 cooking XP worth of raw chicken as punishment. You see, the real most proper source for an egg for Cook's Assistant isn't the coop, it's the chicken, and chickens in RuneScape can actually lay eggs, if they're poisoned. But the easiest accessible poison for me is Karambwan paste, which requires 65 fishing for me to catch the Karambwans. Everything else has harder requirements. So until I'm able to bring an egg sourced from a chicken I poison myself, I will not utilize any benefits of the Cook's Assistant quest. Back to the grind, I use Airstrike until level 9 magic because I figured Earth Strike was better for rune crafting XP rates and magic XP rates. And at 2.5 minute trips it was certainly better. And I made enough earth runes for the rest of the air and mind runes. Tested it out on some sand crabs. And then did druidic ritual before taking on my first slayer task. Completing the Restless Ghost, and crying over bad crop season before getting to the grueling grind to 38 thieving, which took 40 minutes. Pickpocketing master farmers for a specific seed is painful though, but I finally get my red berry seed. Complete Client of Korend, and finally get to making a red berry pie from scratch for the Knight Sword, using a range in Alkyrid because I can't use the Lumbridge Castle one. I finish Dork's quest on the way and accidentally get the gold in my stack, so I buy something worth slightly more and drop it on the ground. No thanks, Doric, I'll steal my own gold. And finally I can smith something requiring more than level 1 attack. I grind some agility and crafting, make an air tiara to save an inventory slot, and use my insane PvM skills to complete the Depths of Despair, running in circles and manually casting because the first Autocast magic weapon that will be available to me is the Skull Scepter for the Ghostly Grasp Arceus spell, requiring 35 magic. The next available would be the Lunar Staff, requiring 65 magic to equip, and then finally the Paddle Staffs, including Bryophyta's Staff, requiring 85 farming for his Celestris tree. Magic is certainly going to be my worst combat skill in the future, but early game my melee and ranged weaponry are severely limited by smithing and farming. So I decided to do a few more quests that require killing some fairly tough enemies, particularly ones with level 1 magic, because magic defense is based on magic level, and this lets me use them to efficiently train magic as well as wipe the floor with these high combat level enemies like the Khazard Warlord for Tree Gnome Village. This quest also gives me spirit tree access, but since I can plant my own spirit trees with high enough farming level, I was thinking that I'd only teleport from a tree I grew myself, because while I did make an exception for travel, because I want to be able to go anywhere, I don't want to let myself use something that I could make myself, because this whole account is based on that kind of stubbornness. In the Grand Tree quest, I love the detail of the 4-man saying he doesn't think Luff stands a chance. It makes sense since there are literally level 1 gnomes on the front lines of the Khazard battlefield, but it seems the gnomes have a talent for making use of powerful creatures beyond terror birds and giant tortoises, although I wonder if the Kingdom of Misthalin would actually struggle against a black demon in a war, or if the mages of the Wizard's Tower would just wipe the floor with it. So now to take a break from killing things, I do the Jungle Potion quest and instead nearly get killed myself, backing myself into a corner where I had to wait 9 minutes to regen, and then world top to sneak past the harpy bug swarms. I learned from that later and cooked enough chicken to survive on 1 HP without waiting around for 1 HP per minute regen. And decided I'd start farming up some assorted quest items for Enlightened to Journey, which I hoped I could start since all the requirements are boostable according to the wiki, but instead I used the dice for the start of Goblin Diplomacy. Also, this random event is the only way I'm allowed to get strange fruit on my account. And it's gone. After that, I look into how I should make glass in my rules, and after realizing the sandstone grinder can't be operated without Drew, I settled on harvesting it from sand pits being acceptable, but for soda ash I need to farm giant seaweed. But until I unlock the ability to farm it, I will use seaweed I fish up to make glass solely for the quest requirements to unlock Fossil Island to get underwater to farm the giant seaweed. But since I need a cup of tea for Digsite, and you can't actually make a regular cup of tea, I came up with a convoluted idea where I'd complete Tower of Life to do creature creation to get a tea flask drop to transfer tea into a cup I made myself as the closest thing to making it myself. But I had some lingering doubts, and so I asked around if a cup of Nettle Tea worked. And Malprac of the RuneScape Snowflake account Discord tested it out, and it does work, so I messed this up. Which means I also made glass for a quest I didn't need to, so I'll have to bring a cup of Nettle Tea to the feet of the Panning Guide before continuing the Digsite quest, and a beer made from glass made using giant seaweed I farmed to the feet of the guns before I can use any of the benefits of the Tower of Life quest. So as my list of mistakes grows ever greater under the weight of my impossibly convoluted rules, leading my descent into madness, I continue grinding out some quests, and at one point after running out of food during Garden of Death while poisoned, I home teleported and ran to the farm in Fort's Rim to cook some chicken to heal, because I was too panicked to remember Fred the farmer's place was closer, and remembering hearing that world hopping resets the poison timer, I panic and hit my quick hop keybind instead of cooking the chicken, but I failed to hop because I was just fighting a chicken, and I die for the first time. If only I held on to that strange fruit to cure my poison. Not that I lost anything since I can just pick it up. I later learned that poison stalling like that might technically not be allowed, but I don't see why they'd let it work instead of just saving 1 extra byte per player data file for the poison countdown. But I guess I'll not do that in the future. Anyway, I end up making myself some iron arrows to replace the bronze arrows since I wanted some better ammunition for Priest in Peril. And since the King of Mistland isn't rewarding me for this quest, I'd appreciate it if you guys could reward me with a sub instead. Thankfully, both enemies for this quest can be safe spotted, although now that I'm editing this, I've realized that the iron arrows don't actually change my DPS at all. In fact, they'd only make a difference at level 23 range before going right back to being equal to bronze arrows at level 24. And with the Monk of Zamorak's high regen, I ended up prayer flicking for a 5% buff that I'm pretty sure isn't even doing anything because the buff rounds down and my range level is less than 20. But I was just doing whatever I thought could help in the hopes that I could actually kill him and barely outpace the healing, which I ultimately managed with some luck. I also make a silver sickle for Nature Spirit. Drop the pies because I didn't make them, and when Philoman blesses my sickle, I naturally decide that I don't need him blessing my sickle when I could just dip it in the grotto waters myself. So I go back to make another sickle and bless it without his help. and through sheer luck discover that sometimes gas can end up stuck past the bridge so I can safe spot them. I had spent a ton of time trying to safe spot them in other ways before noticing this gas on the wrong side of the bridge, and with some world hopping I find a few more like that, which was really helpful since I was not remotely prepared to tank their hits, and so I managed to complete the Nature Spirit quest. Thanks to all the questing, I'm now 2 crafting levels off of being able to offload these empty sacks for Enlightened Journey, and I'm at 600 total levels, so that's where I'm going to end off this video. In the next video, I'll be focusing on fixing my mistakes by making some Nettle Tea, unlocking the ability to farm giant seaweed to make a proper glass of beer for Tower of Life, and possibly even getting 65 fishing for the egg for Cook's Assistant. But that's it for today. Subscribe to join me on my ridiculous journey of being too stubborn to play the game normally, DIY UIM. Thanks for watching, and God bless.